Jannik said yesterday in a press conference that he was so glad to be once again in a Grand Slam final. It says everything about the fact that he cannot afford not to win this one. When it comes to the mental side, I think Jannik Sinner is under a lot of pressure. He hasn't won a Grand Slam this year. Even though Carlos Alcaraz is out, it's an incredible chance for him. In his mind, he should have won Roland Garros. He should win Wimbledon and maybe also the US Open. And then, in his race with Carlos Alcaraz, he's going to come back, which is something that is so important for him. So the pressure will be huge on his side. He knows it's an incredible moment for him and he cannot afford to miss that moment. And on the other hand, you have a player who has nothing to lose. He felt the pressure because he wanted to win his first Grand Slam so badly. Now he has it. And in Wimbledon, again, he didn't expect much. So he's going to play his chance without pressure, which is a huge advantage when it comes to a final of a Grand Slam.
A tennis player enters the season's second Grand Slam with 29 straight wins under his belt, untouchable, unstoppable, the man everyone expects to walk away with the trophy. Then, without warning, his body betrays him. Cramps lock up his legs. The heat turns his dominant lead into a nightmare. And in front of a stunned crowd, the world number one crumbles. This is the story of Jannik Sinner's wildest season yet, a season that could have broken a lesser competitor, but instead became the backdrop for one of the most remarkable comebacks in modern tennis. Let's rewind to Roland Garros. Sinner walked onto the Paris clay as the heavy favorite, riding a winning streak that had made him look almost invincible. 29 consecutive victories will do that to a player's reputation. But tennis has a way of humbling even the best, and in the second round, facing Juan Manuel Cerundolo, Sinner found himself 2 sets up and cruising, 5-1 in the third. Then everything changed. The heat became unbearable. Dehydration set in. His legs seized with cramps he simply could not fight through. What looked like a formality turned into a collapse nobody saw coming, and Sinner walked off the court not as a champion, but as a cautionary tale about how quickly fortunes can turn in this sport. For most athletes, a defeat like that would linger for months. It would creep into their head, plant seeds of doubt, and follow them onto every court they stepped on afterward. But Sinner did something different. He didn't chase redemption immediately. Instead, he made a calculated decision to skip the grass-court tune-up events entirely, giving his body time to recover and his mind time to reset. It was a quiet, almost invisible choice, but it turned out to be the smartest move of his season. Because when Wimbledon arrived, a completely different version of Sinner showed up. Sharp, composed, dangerous. He powered through the draw with the kind of ruthless efficiency that had made him the sport's most feared competitor before Paris ever happened. In the semifinal, he stood across the net from Novak Djokovic, a man who had lifted the Wimbledon trophy 7 times, a living legend of the grass. Sinner didn't just beat him. He dismantled the aura of invincibility that Djokovic still carried into that tournament, and he did it on one of the biggest stages in the sport. Then came the final against Alexander Zverev, and Sinner closed it out in 4 sets, claiming his 5th career Grand Slam title. With that win, he joined an incredibly exclusive club, becoming only the 10th man in the Open era to successfully defend a Wimbledon crown. Think about that for a second. Decades of legends have walked through that draw, and only a handful have ever managed to go back-to-back on that grass. Sinner is now permanently written into that history. But here's what makes this story so much more interesting than just wins and losses. Off the court, Sinner has been quietly rewriting the narrative people have about who he actually is. There's a stereotype that follows elite athletes everywhere, this idea that success breeds arrogance, that the biggest stars become distant and hard to reach once the trophies start piling up. Sinner seems determined to prove that stereotype wrong every single day. Former American tennis pro Andy Roddick recently spent 2 weeks around Sinner behind the scenes, and what he witnessed left a real impression on him. Roddick described a young man who greets everyone with direct eye contact, who treats every person in the room, not just the reporters, but the staff working quietly in the background, with the same level of respect and gratitude. According to Roddick, after finishing interviews, Sinner doesn't just thank the interviewer. He turns and thanks the entire room before he leaves. It's a small gesture, but it speaks volumes about the kind of person carrying that trophy right now. And it's not just Roddick who feels this way. Sinner's fiercest on-court rival, Carlos Alcaraz, has repeatedly spoken about the genuine friendship and mutual respect that exists between them once the match is over. Even Djokovic, the man Sinner dethroned in that Wimbledon semifinal, has publicly praised his work ethic and the level of mastery he brings to every match. When your rivals are the ones defending your character, that tells you something real. Sinner himself has opened up about the image people often project onto him, this idea that he's some kind of emotionless machine out there, calculating every point without feeling a thing. He's pushed back on that characterization directly, explaining that the calm exterior isn't the absence of emotion, it's a shield, a deliberate tool he built to manage the crushing pressure of competing at the highest level. Underneath that composed surface, he insists, is someone who feels everything just as intensely as anyone else. He's even shared that part of what drew him to tennis over other sports he could have pursued, like skiing or football, was exactly this challenge, the way the sport strips a person down and reveals who they truly are in the moments of failure and pressure. He wanted that test. He wanted to know what he was made of. And despite 5 Grand Slam titles and a position at the very top of the world rankings, Sinner keeps describing himself the same simple way, just a kid from a small mountain village who happens to be good at a sport. He's said clearly that he doesn't want fame to change who he fundamentally is, because at the end of the day, he believes tennis doesn't change the world. Now contrast that with Carlos Alcaraz, the man who may end up being the defining rival of Sinner's entire career. Where Sinner is calculated and contained, Alcaraz is pure combustion. He smiles mid-rally. He goes for the impossible shot, just because he can. He feeds off crowd energy and throws it right back at them. Fans have started calling Sinner the robot, not as an insult, but as a description of his relentless precision and emotional control. Alcaraz is the opposite of that in every way, a player who treats each match like a celebration rather than a job. And this is exactly why their rivalry has captured the tennis world's imagination. It's not 2 players who are similar competing for supremacy. It's 2 completely different philosophies of the game colliding on the biggest stages in the sport. History tells us the greatest rivalries are almost always built this way, on contrast, not similarity. Right now, though, that rivalry is on pause. Alcaraz has been sidelined for months after picking up an injury in Barcelona, and his extended absence has left a noticeable gap at the top of the men's game. But make no mistake, when the Spaniard does return to full health, Sinner knows exactly what's waiting for him. Of every player left on tour, Alcaraz remains the one competitor capable of consistently pushing him to his absolute limit. So here's where the season stands. A player who hit rock bottom in Paris, cramping and collapsing in front of the world, turned around and rewrote his own story just weeks later on the lawns of Wimbledon. A 5th Grand Slam. A rare title defense. And through all of it, a reputation off the court that seems to be growing just as fast as his trophy case. Whether you're drawn to his precision, his humility, or the storm that's coming whenever Alcaraz finally steps back on tour, one thing is certain. Jannik Sinner's story this season proves that even the most dominant players in the world are never more than one bad afternoon away from adversity, and never more than a few weeks away from proving exactly why they are still the ones to beat.